Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit did not send out qualifying offers to 4 players. We will discuss those 4. Also, developmental camp updates, as well as should Detroit sign Evgeny Malkin?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio, while Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today, guys, we are going to cover 3 different things for you. It's been a while, I feel like, since we've had a topic for every single segment. But there's just kind of a lot going on with free agency starting on Wednesday, developmental camp, as well as the fact that the Red Wings have not extended qualifying offers to 4 different players. So we're going to cover all 3 of those things in this episode. And I guess the best way to structure it is segment 1, we'll talk about those qualifying offers. Segment 2, we'll do a little hypothetical, should the Red Wings sign this player, because it's a big name player. And then segment 3, we'll talk about those developmental camp updates, because there's a few things to talk about, but nothing major, I feel, has come out of camps thus far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess segment 1 here, Scotty, we can lead right into it here. The Red Wings did not extend qualifying offers to goaltenders Filip Larsson, Kaden Fulcher, Mitchell Stevens, and Olli Juolevi. And I feel like all 4 of those we could have, and I think we did pretty much predict. I think the one that was the biggest question mark was Mitchell Stevens of those 4. But yet not really incredibly surprising, if you ask me.
No, I don't think any of them were really. And we kind of talked about on the expiring contract, or like, what do we bring back? We brought up some of those names during that series. And, when you talk about guys that you're extending QOs to, I don't think any of those guys really fit the bill for guys you extend qualifying offers to. And that's obviously, like, no disrespect to them. I think several of them, if not all of them, will find jobs still. But as far as, getting a QO, I don't think that I don't think there was any breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, like, Kaden Fulcher and Filip Larsson, as far as goaltending development goes, their development did not take a positive direction enough to warrant keeping them in the system and taking up a roster spot on the expanded roster. I believe you're allowed to have 50 people on under contract in your organization, and those are 2 spots that, especially with Sebastian Cossa now in the organization, he is the goaltender they're grooming to take over, and then you have 2 young goaltenders forming your tandem at the NHL level. You don't really have to, I won't say waste, but use those 2 roster spots on goalies who just aren't developing that well. And which is a real shame about Filip Larsson too, because he had a phenomenal season with the University of Denver, 2 seasons ago, like a .930 save percentage. But it definitely seems he was very much a product of the team around him rather than his own ability, because he played, I think, 7 games with the Grand Rapids Griffins and posted like a .845 save percentage. Just did not look ready for that level whatsoever, and then never reclaimed that stud level of production, save percentage capability that he did with Denver when he got sent back down from Grand Rapids.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when you're looking at the direction of the team, just to get more of like a broad sense, when you look at the direction of the team again, and you look at some of the guys that we have coming, you look at, again, we need to spend a lot of money and to even reach the salary floor, right? And so I think that they looked around and looked at which players hockey wise were expendable, and those were I don't think any of these are any of this is super groundbreaking. I guess Stevens is the one, maybe
that's the one that
be like, hey,
probably
like
stands out.
that could have been somebody. But again, with how much of a honestly roller coaster his season was for the Wings this past season, as far as playing time and production, I mean, not a shock, even though it is probably the one that stands out the most.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly. We didn't trade much for Mitchell Stevens, and I remember that specifically. The Red Wings traded a 6th-round pick in this year's draft, which ended up being pick number 169, Jared Wright, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, for the chance, taking the flyer on Mitchell Stevens, who there was an opportunity that maybe he was underutilized with Tampa Bay. He got a bigger opportunity here, but was on and off the injured reserve list with the Red Wings this season. And just, unfortunately, a lot like Carter Rowney, who I think I also heard today that they're not going to re-sign him, which again makes perfect sense. I mean, those are two centers in, a center core that is both log jammed and not log jammed at the same time. There's a lot of players under contract at that position, but nobody who really filled that role and took that role and excelled at it. I mean, you had Sam Gagner, you had Mitchell Stevens, you had Carter Rowney. Again, both Stevens and Rowney were on and off the IR all season.
Right,
of course,
that's
Larkin and
I think the kind of the dagger for Stevens. I mean, that's a guy that I still think a lot of people believe can be a productive 4th-line center, but I don't think it's
4 months
worth
on injured reserve.
Right, so it's just like that'll be a risk that another team absolutely I think does take, and he'll have a job in the fall.
And it's not much of a
absolutely,
risk,
No, but it's not much of a risk if it's your first time doing it, but it's also not worth it for an organization to take the same risk 2 seasons in a row on the same player. That is not, he doesn't have that high of a ceiling. So makes sense that the Red Wings will let him go, but at the same time, he will certainly have there's like is that a tornado siren? Maybe, I don't know what's going on outside. Anyway, there's anyway, yeah, no, he'll get a job, but it just it won't be here. And then on the flip side, you have they declined or non-tendered is the technical term. Those players, but then they did extend they did qualify rather. Filip Zadina, Jake Walman, and Chase Pearson. I think those were all pretty expected as well. Zadina is the most obvious one for as much controversy as he causes and as much crap as he gets. He at the end of the day, he's still incredibly young, still a top 10 pick, and someone that they're certainly not ready to just like give up on and not tender. That would be like unbelievable.
Yeah. So, there's still a lot of upside there, but also, I mean, I also expect Zadina to decline that offer, and then he'll end up probably signing a short-term contract.
Or an actual contract. Yeah, that happens a lot with not only qualifying offers, but just arbitration-eligible players in general. In any arbitration sport, which is in America, just really hockey and baseball, like people do that very often, and Zadina,
And Jake Walman, I would expect to decline the qualifying offer as well. I think Chase Pearson probably accepts it, but regardless, I mean, these are things that I expected. I expected, we expected rather. Stevens is the only outlier. Juolevi, I am a little personally. I wish I had seen more of him. I know his personal track record with other teams does not reflect well on his play, and I also know that he's injury prone. But he only played 8 games with the Wings.
Like that pickup, man.
It was a waiver wire pickup. It was a good depth piece for Detroit when they were injured. And he was young enough that he could still develop and improve his game. And in his 8 games, he was, again, small sample size, I understand this, but his expected goals for percentage and relative to his teammates were all massive boons. Like, he was very good when it came to shots for versus shots against on the ice for the Red Wings. But again, I know sheltered minutes. I know limited games. So I also understand and expected him not to get a qualifying offer. It was just a selfish bias thing of mine.
For sure. Like, Walman and Pearson they both do have arbitration rights as well, unlike Zadina. So so they could negotiate a little bit, or they could just say screw arbitration and just go straight into, the same thing as Zadina, just like a short 1-year contract or whatever. But super interesting. So that's the whole pool, and that's the pool of people they did qualify and didn't qualify. And I don't think as a whole, I don't think there's any surprises. Like if we just want to put a bow on this, I don't think there's any surprises. I think the people that they did qualify makes a lot of sense that they qualified those players, and the players they didn't qualify. The only one that kind of surprises me a little bit is Mitchell Stevens, but that's not even really a surprise. Surprise isn't even the right word. It's just, if there was anybody on the list that did not get tendered, he is the only one that there might have been an argument to tender. But again, like I said, 2 years in a row taking a risk on a player, not going to happen too often, especially when you're talking about, fourth line talent. So I think that this is all expected, and yeah, we'll head into free agency with those 3 guys coming back, and then holes to fill depth wise with those 5 or 6 guys that they didn't.
Absolutely. And we're going to talking about Mitchell Stevens and how there's a lot of centers, we'll talk about a center that the Red Wings could possibly bring in that is a UFA. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a delicious, chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's just like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They are good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are only here for a limited time. Go to Built.com right now to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. All Built bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to transition now from talking about players who did not receive a qualifying offer to players that the Red Wings could bring in via free agency. And I'm going to be I have a question that I think we both pretty already know the answer to, but the hypothetical surrounding it is the idea that this player could be wearing a winged wheel is very, very sexy. It is a sexy hypothetical. News broke. I don't know what Pittsburgh is doing, but news broke on Monday that Evgeny Malkin is more than likely to test free agent waters. And that got compounded by the fact that they extended Raquel 5 years, $5 million a season. And then last week, Chris Letang eating up a big chunk of their remaining cap space, not leaving anything extra for Evgeny Malkin. Don't really understand the Raquel extension because he excelled so well this past season playing on a line with Evgeny Malkin, but that's neither here nor there. Evgeny Malkin is a guy who, at his age, still has plenty left in the tank. He's 35 years old, but was 42 points in 41 games played with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was injured this past season, but ended up playing half the season. And just offensive machine, power play extraordinaire. I don't know what a better adjective to say, but he is lethal on the power play. And yeah, his age is beginning to show. He's never been much of a defensive forward to begin with. You're not signing him or you don't have him on your team for that purpose. And, even though Detroit did draft Marco Kasper to be a center, he might not be ready for a couple more years. Evgeny Malkin at 35 still provides, at his pace that he was going, 80 points a season. He was 42 points in 41 games played. Double that. That's how many points he was going to have across the season. And it was even distribution, 20 goals, 21 assists, I think. This is a guy who is still lethal offensive weapon. Scotty, does he make sense for the Detroit Red Wings to target in the free agent market?
No, but I do think that it's that this is totally not even Wings related. No, I don't. But I am excited to see what he does, like not in the shadow of Crosby. That's all I wanted to say. Like I don't think that this is a Wings radar signing. I don't think that we're on his radar. I don't think he's on ours. Whatever. But I do think that but I am excited to see what he can do not playing behind Crosby. I'm kind of excited to, and like, you know, if you want to get into like the nitty gritty of why, I mean, for starters, I know there's a COVID year in there too, but he hasn't played 60 games in a season since 2018. And like that plus being 35 years old, I'm not really sure it's
a red flag.
Yeah, what the Wings are going for as far as like that consistency. I mean, he's obviously a premier talent and has been a premier talent for the better part of 15 years now. But I just at his current age and how his body is holding up and everything, I think he'll probably want to go to a team that maybe A, he doesn't have to carry such an insane load on, and B, that might be closer to maybe title contention.
Well, and the reports are coming out that New York Rangers are a leading candidate for Evgeny Malkin, and I think that's a perfect fit. I mean, this is a guy who, despite being injury prone, like I said, still has a lot of offense left in the tank. They're a team that, I mean, any team could use an Evgeny Malkin. Let's be honest. I don't care what team you are and how stacked
he's played
you are.
70 games one time since 2011.
Yes.
He's
always been
70. Right. He has hit the 70 games played mark one time in the last decade. He has done it once, and that was in 17-18 when he played almost 80 games.
But counterpoint to that, in the 41 games he did play this last season, he put up a 10.7 expected goals above replacement,
production.
A 1.9
expected
wins. Yeah, 1.9 wins above replacement. So yeah, it sucks when he's out of the lineup, but when he's in the lineup, he's a game changer. He absolutely is. He drives plays.
Absolutely. He's been over a point a game player for pretty much the entirety of that decade stretch where he hasn't played 70 games. He's pretty much year in and year out a point a game or better player at 100%. It's just like what kind of deal
that's the big thing.
You're going to give him. You're going to give a 35-year-old that is not going to play a full season pretty much any of those next 3 years. Like, you're going to give him a 3-year deal. Like, I don't know. There's no point in giving him a 1 or a 2-year deal. He's looking to
won't
even
win. Take that.
Right. He's looking to win toward the end of his career. So unless you're willing to give Malkin a 4 to 6 year deal.
Yeah. And 7 is the max you can get on the free agent market.
Right. Unless you're willing to give him like a big time deal at 35, knowing he may not play a full season in a single one of those 4 to 6 years. Unless you're willing to do that to a 35-year-old Malkin, I'm not really sure that makes too much sense. But that would be the only way it would, is if you could guarantee some sort of health and you gave him 4 to 6 years where he can be a focal point when we're playoff competitive again. That is the where he fits into that picture. It's just. That's a tough. It's a tough
sell.
But yes, but it's just a very. I don't even know. I'm stumbling trying to think of the analogy I'm trying to make, but it's just very specific needs and requirements need to be met for it to work out, and I'm not sure the odds of that happening are.
The only requirement that the Red Wings meet is that they have a lot of cap space, and that they meet that requirement with literally every UFA that's out there.
Correct.
Literally every UFA. But again, the fit doesn't make sense, but it's still kind of sexy. Like,
it is
kind of a sexy thing. The thing, you're spot on with your analysis there, in every single facet, and that's why I think that for Evgeny Malkin, what he's looking for this time probably isn't so much money, but term. I mean, this is going to be more than likely his final contract at the NHL level, especially because of all the things you listed, the fact that he's injury prone. So he's going to want to go to a team that's more likely to offer him as many years as he can possibly play, rather than a team that's going to offer him $9.5 million a year. His last contract he came off of just now is a max contract, a 9.5 8-year contract. So
I would love to have him.
His pay scale is going to decrease.
I agree with you. I would love to have him, and if you can get him for cheaper than maybe presumed, like that's awesome. I was really just laying out why I don't think it makes too much sense for either side. But if it was announced that he was a Red Wing tomorrow, I'd be doing jumping jacks. You know what I mean? Like it's
because he would come in and he would immediately solve a huge issue for the Detroit Red Wings and the fact that they don't have a true 2C. In fact, healthy, he's probably a 1C on this team. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's been like borderline the best 2C in hockey for the last 15 years. Like he's really good at that.
And the only reason he's been the best 2C is because the 1C was Sidney Crosby.
Right, a generational player. Yeah,
it's very much akin to what Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov went through in their tenure at the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, I don't know how true the rumors are. But like the rumor is a big part of the reason why Sergei Fedorov wanted to leave Detroit is because he wanted to step out of the shadow of Steve Yzerman. And if that is the true rumor, I completely understand that. I mean, Sergei Fedorov, pure scoring, pure forward, was probably a better player than Steve Yzerman. Steve Yzerman just had everything. Steve Yzerman was the complete package. And Sergei Fedorov was absolutely, I mean, it's hard to like compare and contrast the two players because they're both like some of the two of the best to ever wear the right winged wheel and two of the best to ever step on the ice in NHL history. I mean, they both brought such unique skill sets and they complemented each other so very well. And it's a similar situation that we're seeing with this. But the difference here is Evgeny Malkin didn't want to leave Pittsburgh. He wanted to stay. It's Pittsburgh decided they didn't want Evgeny Malkin,
right?
Which makes this situation so unique.
We don't have any money left over for you. We spent all of it.
Well, they didn't even get that far because they signed Raquel to a 5x5. Right. Raquel's, I'm sorry, he's not that good. That's like a Darren Helm style signing, which Darren Helm is a fan favorite or was a fan favorite. We don't sign him to 5 years by $5 million. Sorry, Isaac Rohan, I know it's blasphemy.
Speaking of former Penguins, can we talk about the Leafs?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
The Leafs are hilarious, man.
Can we talk?
They're so funny.
They're.
Hey, let's dump Peter Mrazek's contract, then bring in a more expensive goalie that's also worse than Peter Mrazek.
That
sounds brilliant to me.
In hockey, not just hockey, but all sports, in filling a hole by creating a hole is always a dumb thing to do in any sport. You do not create a hole to then fill that hole.
You have that hole and
filled.
Worse.
Yeah, if that hole is already filled, don't create the hole. And that is exactly what Toronto's doing by not just letting Peter Mrazek walk, or I'm sorry, they traded him, but then letting Jack Campbell, who was a decidingly better goaltender than Matt Murray has been in the last few years. Now, Matt Murray went through a phase with Pittsburgh where he was stellar. I mean, he won Stanley Cups as their starting goaltender.
When he was 22.
Yeah. He has not been the same since.
He hasn't been that dude since he was 23 years old, 24 years old. And he's, 28, 29 now.
And now the trade they
made, he was
a
backup in Ottawa.
Yeah. The trade they made for Murray would make sense for a team who is rebuilding to make, like a Detroit, like a Arizona, like a Montreal. It is a cap dump trade. You got Matt Murray and a 3rd and a 7th round pick.
Right.
And only gave back future considerations. That is a cap dump trade that a cap-strapped team like Toronto just agreed to do for a goaltender who's not very good. Now, if he can somehow reclaim how he was in Pittsburgh, big brain move. Big brain move. But we've seen multiple years in a row, 2 or 3 years in a row, where he just hasn't been able to do that. Not that we haven't seen late career renaissances in the past, but I just don't see how this trade makes sense when you literally had Jack Campbell, who isn't like the most amazing goaltender in the world, but he held the fort down for Toronto. I would argue Peter Mrazek, with all his positional issues that continue to stifle him throughout his entire career, is still a better option than Matt Murray at this point. So I don't really understand it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does. But it's hilarious.
It's objectively funny because screw Toronto.
Yeah,
like I'm
having a great time with it.
Yeah. Let's transition now, then, Scotty, to segment 3 because I think we got our Evgeny Malkin hypothetical out. In the end, I guess nailing the coffin on that subject. It'd be sexy pick. It'd be cool, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, for either side.
For either side, exactly. Let's talk about the developmental camp that's going on right now at Little Caesars Arena on their practice ice. Lots of players and prospects that you want to watch are there. Sabrango's there. Marco Kasper's obviously there. Sebastian Cossa's there. Edvinsson and Wallander are not there yet. They're having trouble getting to the U.S. Their flights got canceled. The consulate still has their passports. They'll come here eventually, and they're going to stay through past developmental camp for World Juniors that's happening in August in Alberta. But there was a couple media availabilities of players today. Dan Cleary was there, who's leading the developmental camp for these young players, which just another, like, I feel like everyone in the Red Wings organization, I don't mean this is a bad thing, but everyone in the Red Wings organization right now is a former player, it feels like.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little fraternity.
It is. But, like, I mean, it works. These guys have great hockey minds.
All great at their job. So, like, yeah, and it's awesome. It's like objectively cool.
Oh, it is pretty cool. I don't like the whole old boys club mentality, but I mean, if it's an old boys club in which the old boys actually know what the hell they're doing, then I'm okay with it. And that seems, at least on the surface so far, to be the case with the Detroit Red Wings. And so Dan Cleary met the media along with several of the prospects. To be honest, guys, I mean, media availabilities are media availabilities. Not a lot is said. Developmental camps in general aren't the most, there's not the most fascinating information that comes out from these.
Well, this early for sure.
Especially this early, exactly.
There was like Sebastian Cossa had a cool quote where he said, people were asking him about where he was going to play this year, what level he was going to play at this year, whatever. And he said, I'm pretty cookie cutter ish type of answer, I guess. But, he said it doesn't matter where I play. Like my goal is to win hockey games no matter where I play, kind of thing. So a lot of quotes like that and stuff. And a lot of funny videos of like them showing them bands from the 90s and all of them being too young to know even like who the Jonas Brothers are, which is even right, or who Britney Spears even is. Like, there's stuff like that, but yeah, especially like this early on, first day we're even talking about it. There's not too much as far as performance wise, but some interesting quotes, some cool quotes. And when everybody who's supposed to be here gets here, there will be some more stuff. And then World Juniors will be super fun to cover. So there's stuff on the way there, but yeah, this early on, it's, just everybody kind of showing up, and it's more right now. It's honestly more of just like who's here and who's not. That's really like the biggest stories from this early on.
Well, you mentioned the Sebastian Cossa thing, and I want to go back to that. One, because I love the mentality, and two, sure. I guess I have 3 points here. I love that mentality of I'm going to win wherever they put me. Like, that's not the problem. Two, Dan Cleary mentioned how like they take media classes on how to deal with the media, and he like joked about it. He's like, "Oh, they're taking classes here to learn how to deal with you guys," and it's like that was very apparent through every interview. It felt like that these guys were putting that to work immediately because the answers they gave you, I mean, were honest answers, but nothing really, nothing really to dig too much into. I think Carter Mazur had the most interesting conversation with the media out of anyone, given what we heard from Dan Cleary, and then they followed up with him on it. But the one last thing I want to talk about with Sebastian Cossa, Scotty, is how mature he seems. More so, and not that the other players didn't seem mature, but Sebastian Cossa seems mature beyond his years, especially when dealing with the media. I mean, they were interviewing him, and he was giving answers like he was a veteran in the NHL level. And his answers not just felt, I mean, yeah, there was a cookie cutterness to them. That's what they're being trained to do. But also not so barren of information. Like, he was still giving you the answers that you wanted, and they were still good quality answers. And it's just like, like he just had this air about him that the mental maturity was there, which is, you can't be said enough about players that young. Mental maturity for any player is a huge quality to have, and he seems to have it in excess.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're being honest, like of all positions that you want to hear that type of maturity, and like goalie's kind of the one that you want to hear that in the most too. Like, it's like I said, man, like it's not, there's not going to be any groundbreaking stuff. You're kind of just looking at who's on the roster for camp and some of the quotes like that. But man, I love this team. I love this team, man. And I'm going to find amusement out of that kind of stuff still. And there was definitely some good quotes and Cossa kind of stole the show as far as the interview process went today, because it was a lot of stuff like that where he consistently was talking about, trust the process. I know it might be a while till I'm here. I don't care. I want to win everywhere I go, kind of thing. Didn't show any cards either about like if he had been told anything and where
the
he
Iserman
might
masterclass on media
where
availability.
he might be playing this fall. There was none of that, but I'm really pumped for juniors. Really pumped for juniors.
Yeah, and so I think Carter Mazur probably had also one of the more interesting media availabilities in that he was. It wasn't just him; it was also the addition to what Dan Cleary's comments on Carter Mazur was. Mostly that he was very impressed with his year-to-year progress that he has made, and that he really exploded with the University of Denver this season. And a big part of that is his proactiveness at becoming a better player. He reached out to Dan Cleary and asked Dan Cleary, like, he was having trouble scoring at the University of Denver, and he reached out to Dan Cleary and the Red Wings and said, do you guys have some tape on how I can improve what team players do in these situations that make them successful? And Dan Cleary says, all we did was send him a 5-minute clip. And then his offense exploded. He's like, I don't know if it was the 5-minute clip or if it was just something in his confidence finally clicked. But he exploded in offense. And then they asked Carter Mazur, they followed up with Mazur about it and asked him, what was it about that? And he just said, it was learning the fine details. He's like, everything, like you get trained in all this stuff, but sometimes those fine details escape you. And getting that film, he's like, I have these resources. And this is the part that impressed me the most, not so much about the step forward, which does impress me, but the fact that he recognizes he has these resources and being so proactive about improving his game because he wants to be an NHL caliber player. And all these players do, but Mazur especially, he's like, I am a Red Wings draft pick. I have these resources available. So why would I not reach out to these guys and try and improve my game if I'm struggling at a facet? Like, he's trying his best to round out his entire game. And he said that, and I'm like, this guy, he gets it. Like, this is a guy, like, I immediately became like a Carter Mazur fan. Like, I'm like, I want this guy on a winged wheel. Like, the fact that he's being so proactive this early in his career at trying to become an NHL talent just impressed me so much. For whatever that's worth.
No, for sure. And that's what these kind of, camps are for. So super cool.
Any final comments, my guy?
I really don't want to go do the Tigers show. Really don't want to go do that right now.
Why is that, buddy?
Because they stink.
What happened in their 6-game winning streak?
And it makes me sad. Well, they've almost lost that already back. So
yeah, 4-game losing streak now.
Yeah,
all against divisional opponents, which they were just smoking.
Yeah, they look absolutely terrible. These last 4 games have been like 4 of the worst of the season as far as just like fundamental baseball. It's really bad. But we ball.
Thanks for being Locked On Red Wings, your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your 30-minute daily NHL podcast. Be back with a new episode tomorrow, probably going over a couple more free agent scenarios just as free agency breaks on Wednesday. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.